Chapter 1 Red-Haired Boy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the year 1516 of the Hyuan calendar, we find ourselves in Glass Town, a small port on the North Sea. Since the dawn of the great pirate era, dreamers have flocked to the sea, bringing both chaos and prosperity. Hey, look over there. There's someone in the water. That a sailor unloading cargo spotted a figure struggling in the distance. A sailor in trouble? Let's go get him. He's swimming like a motorboat. Maybe he doesn't need our help. Before he finished, a man with short red hair surged ashore, leaping from the waves and landing gracefully, water cascading off his muscular frame. Phew, that was a hike. Excuse me, which way to the Old Gun Tavern? That he pulled the towel from his arm, wrung it out, and casually wiped his hair, addressing the stunned sailor. The sailor stared, speechless. The red-haired guy had piercing green eyes, and his 6.5-foot height made him an imposing figure. Finally snapping out of it, the sailor pointed. Thanks. Nott Rod slung the towel over the sailor's arm, who was still a bit dazed, and headed in that direction, pulling on the shirt he'd tied around his waist. His skin was flushed, and steam rose from his body, quickly drying his clothes. That guy is a freak. Only after Rhodes vanished did the sailor react, grabbing the towel, crumpling it, and then hesitating. The whole thing, from spotting him to him reaching the shore, took only a few seconds. I've never seen anyone swim that fast. His companion nodded, a spark of longing in his eyes. Maybe he'll be a big shot someday, like Admiral Akainu. The sailor paused, smoothed out the towel, folded it, and stuffed it in his bag. Yeah, could be the next Admiral Kizaru. His companion shot him a cold glance. Akainu's the greatest. From the North Sea. Absolute justice, wiping out all those pirate scum. Kizaru's the best. North Sea pride. Always there at the speed of light to save the day. Akainu's stronger. Kizaru's faster. You know what? They should just kill all those damn Marines. In the Old Gun Tavern, a man built like a bear downed a mug of beer, the brew dribbling through his beard, forming a puddle at his feet. The boisterous tavern went silent. The Old Gun was a melting pot of shady characters, from pirates to underworld types, but even here, blasting the Marines was risky. This was still Marine territory, after all. You never knew who was listening. That's Black Bear Victor. People exchanged glances, falling silent, afraid of drawing Victor's attention. Black Bear Victor was a rising star. He'd taken down the Cliff Pirates, worth 13.5 million berries, in his first raid. 5 days ago, he'd fought off the 128th Marine Branch. No bounty yet, but nobody underestimated him. Ha ha ha, yeah. Boss is the best. If those Marine tubs hadn't run, he'd have sunk them all. Ah la la la, stick with Victor, and we'll be the biggest pirate crew in the North Sea. Kill all those damn Marines. That's right. And anyone else we don't like. Except the women. They stay. Yeah, the women and the treasure. Victor's crew cheered, the tavern slowly regaining its buzz, everyone still careful not to provoke the lawless pirates. Hey, you over there. Can't you see the great Captain Black Bear Victor? Get over here and pour him a drink. A pirate slammed his cutlass on the table, glaring at a figure in the corner. All eyes turned. Several of Victor's men whistled and catcalled. The person was reading a book. Beneath long red hair was a handsome face, and his green eyes held a spark of mystery. Despite the noise, he seemed calm. Sorry, I'm a guy. He answered without looking up. Sounded like it happened a lot. No anger in his voice. Guy? The pirate blinked, then grinned. Guys are okay too. He swaggered over, slamming his cutlass on the young man's table. The threat was clear, and his grin widened. I don't think so. The pirate reached out to touch the young man's face. Bang! A gunshot rang out, and the pirate fell backward, the grin still on his face, but a smoking hole in his forehead. People scrambled back, staring at Victor and his crew in the center of the tavern. Arguments were common, but a straight-up shooting. That was something else, especially when the victim was one of Black Bear Victor's crew. Got blood on the book. The red-haired guy frowned at the splatter. You bastard, Black Bear Victor roared, slamming his fist on the table. A terrifying aura rolled off him. His crew jumped up, glaring at the young man in the corner. What did you do to my buddy? Victor charged. I hate being interrupted when I'm reading, the red-haired guy calmly set down the book, his handsome face turning cold. Bang. Another gunshot. The new book set sail, please collect it, recommend it, and read it. Chapter 2 Nott Rod. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Nott Rods. This is the Old Gun Tavern, right? Rhodes pushed open the door and stepped inside. A flicker of surprise crossed his face. He hesitated, stepped back out, double-checked the sign, then re-entered, looking puzzled. I thought I walked into a library. Why is it so quiet in here? Shrugging off his confusion, Rhodes headed for the bar. Hey, barkeep, 2 of your best beers. Coming right up. As Rhodes and the bartender spoke, the tavern slowly returned to its usual sounds. It was as if a spell had been broken, but everyone's eyes kept drifting to a corner of the room, and even their drinking seemed more refined, their conversations more subdued. The notorious Black Bear Victor and his crew had just learned the hard way not to disturb the red-haired pretty boy. No one wanted a bullet between the eyes for making a scene. Put it all on my tab. Rhodes grabbed his beer from the bartender, waved dismissively, and walked straight towards the corner. A circle of empty tables surrounded the red-haired guy. Despite the tavern being packed, nobody dared sit near him. As Rhodes approached, the tavern grew quieter. All eyes followed him. The only sound was the thump of his boots on the floor, each step echoing like a drumbeat in their chests. He reached the red-haired kid, pulled out a chair, and sat down. Every heart in the place leaped into their throats. Clunk. The sound of the beer glass hitting the table was as loud as a gunshot, matching the frantic thumping of everyone's pulse. The red-haired guy looked up, and it felt like an invisible hand clamped down on the mouths of everyone in the tavern, stealing their breath. Long time no see, Neru. Rhodes slid a beer across the table to the long-haired redhead. Neru, a smile of genuine pleasure lighting up his face. Yeah. Neru closed his book, set it aside, picked up the beer, and clinked glasses with Rhodes. So, they know each other. And they're drinking, which means no more reading. A collective sigh of relief swept through the tavern. The tension dissipated, the noise returned, and soon the place was buzzing again. Looks like you got over it, huh? Just seasickness. I've been bouncing around on the ocean for months. I'm cured. Once we get back to Fian Island and join up, we'll raise our flag. Rhodes tossed back his beer, a confident grin on his face. Nott Rhodes, a 19-year-old orphan, was a time traveler. He'd grown up with his younger brother, Nilu, also an orphan whose blood relation to Rhodes was uncertain. This was a dangerous world, overrun by pirates who routinely pillaged villages and slaughtered entire families. The original Rhodes had likely been a victim of the Great Pirate Era. When Rhodes arrived, he didn't inherit any memories from his predecessor, but he instinctively understood the language. All he remembered was his name, Nott Rhodes, almost identical to his name back home, and the name of the small child he found in his arms, Nilu. The kid was only 3 or 4, and his memories didn't amount to much, certainly nothing as useful as the pirate lore Rhodes had picked up through online videos. Back in his previous life, Rhodes had been a casual fan of the OnePiece series. He'd gleaned information about the world after the big war from those short videos. That was enough, though, to understand the danger he was now in. Luckily, he'd brought along 2 cheat codes when he traveled through time. The first was, Knights Don't Die Empty-Handed, which gave him mastery over any weapon he held. The second was, What Doesn't Kill Me Makes Me Stronger, which he jokingly called, SIT-UPS. Whether it was extreme physical stress or a near-death injury, his body would recover stronger. With those 2 advantages, he and Nera had survived the rough start. Over the last decade, Rhodes had witnessed the chaos and darkness of this world firsthand. Even behind the veneer of prosperous towns, a deep rot festered. Pirates struck without warning, stealing the hard-earned wealth of ordinary people. Corrupt nobles and officials quietly amassed fortunes while the common folk struggled to survive. And the navy, supposedly upholding justice, was just as likely to rob and plunder. Then there were the celestial dragons, the so-called descendants of God at the top of the food chain, living in luxury off the world's resources and wielding absolute power. It was a dog-eat-dog world, and Rhodes wasn't about to be someone else's meal. He didn't buy into the idea that anyone was born superior or deserving of special privileges. He only believed that royalty, generals, and leaders were no different from anyone else. He wasn't interested in changing the world, or dedicating his life to some grand cause of liberation. He just wanted to enjoy his life in this crazy, fantastical place, in a world where strength ruled and powerful individuals could level nations. He believed one thing: fists were power. He wanted to turn the world upside down, shatter every rule that held him back, and become the guy with the biggest fist around. Unfortunately, 50 yards out to sea, he discovered that his stomach didn't share his ambitions. He was seasick. He could have swum between islands years ago, but who knew he'd get seasick? Now, after a few months of solo sailing, Rhodes had finally conquered the problem. The next ship to Fian Island leaves in 3 days. Neru took a sip of his beer, pulled a notebook from his side, and handed it to Rhodes. "These are some people I've been watching. Might be someone you'd be interested in." Rhodes took the notebook and opened it. Neatly written profiles filled the pages, some accompanied by sketches. "Has this guy already set sail?" Rhodes paused, flipping through the pages, murmuring to himself. "Tyrant, Bartholomew Bear. Sounds like the tide is turning." Rhodes calmed his sudden excitement and continued reading Neru's intel. This one." Rhodes stopped again. Neru glanced at the profile he was looking at. "She's been active around here recently." The tavern door swung open again, and a tall woman with a purple high ponytail strode in. She wore a tight orange tracksuit that emphasized her curves. Her tan skin gave her an athletic look, and her yellow, cat-like eyes added a touch of wildness. Catwoman Nia. Chapter 3 Catwoman Nia. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Vodka, neat. Nia tossed a few bills onto the bar, propped her chin on her hand, and lounged there. "Hey, gorgeous, how about we share a drink?" A guy, clearly drawn in by Nia's looks, sidled up, struck what he thought was a cool pose, and lowered his voice to what he probably thought was a suave murmur. Nia just glanced at him before casually pulling out a few big bills and handing them to the bartender. "Open a bottle of Stein's Red for me, the Mignon Winery vintage. It's light and sweet with a spicy kick, just like the lady here." "Sorry, sir. We don't carry that." "What about Stoven's White?" "It's got a bit of a green edge, but it'll do." "Nope. Vodka's fine, the drink doesn't matter anyway. It's the company that counts." Nia looked at the man with a flicker of interest. His palms and the web between his thumb and forefinger were rough. He'd clearly had a lot of sword or spear practice. And judging by his posture, he'd gone through some serious physical training. Navy? Or some government spook? Nah, probably not. Government intelligence guys were usually a bit sharper than this, but whatever. "Sounds like you've tasted a lot of wine." "Never heard of any of the stuff you mentioned." "Well, I'm a lieutenant commander in the Navy. Headquarters, actually. Gives you a little more exposure." He emphasized the word headquarters. "Navy headquarters, huh? Impressive. I hear that's on the Grand Line. You must have had some crazy adventures." "Oh, believe me, the stories I could tell a girl like you couldn't even imagine. Especially on the Grand Line. Things you wouldn't believe." The lieutenant commander saw the bait being taken and a smug little smile almost escaped him. It never failed. Mention Navy headquarters, and women ate it up. Especially these small-town girls from the North Blue. Drop a few Grand Line facts, and they'd be all wide-eyed and impressed. Then he'd be the hero who had braved the Grand Line himself. And after that, this assignment to the North Blue was working out better than he'd hoped. He picked up his glass, clinked it against hers, and launched into a story he'd told 1,000,000 times. Doesn't sound all that special. Rhodes, watching Nia chat with the lieutenant, felt a little disappointed. He'd hoped she'd be more interesting, using her looks to get information. That was too easy. Maybe you're underestimating her, Rhodes. Nelu observed the scene with a calm expression. He hadn't included much detail about Nia in his notes, figuring she was a minor player in the North Blue. But from what he knew, Catwoman Nia was more than she seemed. She was called Catwoman less because of her looks and more because of her unpredictable, cat-like temperament. Seriously? You're repeating the same lines over and over. I think my ears are bleeding. Tell me, is your head filled with seawater, or maybe just all the fine wine you're talking about? That the mood at the bar suddenly shifted. Nia downed her drink, waved her hand dismissively, and cut him off. I thought I might hear something interesting, but it's all just blah blah blah. I've never been to the Grand Line, but I bet I could take down one of those sea kings that swallow warships easier than you could. You're boring. I'm not into guys who just run their mouths. Beat it before you ruin my buzz. If you stay any closer, I might throw up. Hey, the lieutenant commander's face flushed crimson. He might have embellished his stories, but this woman was going too far. Whatever, guess I'll just leave. Seeing him standing there dumbfounded, Nia grabbed another drink the bartender had set out, slapped a few bills on the table, and headed towards the corner. Compared to the Navy idiot, those red-haired guys look like they might be more fun. You bitch, infuriated, the lieutenant commander grabbed her wrist, his eyes burning. Let me tell you something. A guy like you grabs? Does that sound like a man of justice? Hateful, furious, the lieutenant commander grabbed Nia's hand and tried to pull her closer. He raised his other hand, ready to slap the face that he had thought was so stunning. Bang. Nia twisted, grabbed the lieutenant commander, and flipped him over her shoulder. The world spun for a moment, and then he landed flat on his back. What a creep. Looking down at the Navy guy sprawled on the floor, Nia smirked. She turned away from him, heading over to Rhodes' table. As she turned, the lieutenant commander leaped to his feet, a dark look in his eyes. He swung a fist at the back of her head. Since she'd attacked the lieutenant commander, there was no need to be cautious. He could treat this woman as a pirate. He imagined seeing Nia go down from the blow, begging him to stop. Instead, he saw a long, straight leg, boom. Nia spun around, raised her leg high, and brought it down, connecting squarely with the lieutenant commander's head. The force sent him crashing back to the floor. Seriously, I said I wasn't interested. Guys who can't take a hint are so annoying. She glanced at the unconscious Navy guy, gave him a kick with her heel, bent down to grab his wallet, pulled out a few bills, stuffed them into her top, and tossed the wallet to the bartender. Take the repair costs out of that, and pour me another drink. Chapter 4 Frankenstein's Commission. You are listening at novelfull.audio. How about we grab a drink, fellas? Nia pulled out a chair, sat down, and sized up Rhodes and Nelu. Compared to that Navy dimwit earlier, these two were big shots in the North Sea. Especially the short-haired one, he radiated raw power. Her instincts screamed that he was a beast in human form, but with them on board, this job would be a breeze. The bartender delivered drinks, and Nia slid the glasses towards Rhodes and Nelu, gesturing with her hand. Let's cut to the chase. Rhodes picked up his glass, took a sip, and frowned slightly. Yep, he definitely preferred beer. All right. I took a job delivering a guy to Mignon Island. Contacts waiting there. Drop him off safe, and the payout's 5 million belly. If you're in, we split it even. Mignon Island. That was right next to Fian Island. Only half a day's trip. Rhodes paused, then clinked his glass against Nia's. Just so we're clear, I don't do kidnapping or human trafficking. Relax, I have my standards. Then, deal. This guy lives here. Rhodes stared at the dilapidated warehouse, looking questioningly at Nia. Could someone living in a dump like this really afford 5 million belly? You're the guys who took the job, right? Name's Gray. I'm a scientist. A disheveled young man stumbled out of the warehouse. He was maybe 30, wearing stained white overalls, and a ratty old fisherman's hat. Dark circles ringed his eyes, and he hadn't shaved in days. He looked like a mess, but there was a hint of mad genius about him. But did this guy really have the cash? Reading the skepticism in their eyes, Gray explained. The money comes from other people. Just get me to Mignon Island. They'll take it from there and pay you guys. Asterisk this guy's getting scammed, asterisk Rhodes thought. Before Rhodes or anyone could ask, Gray started rambling. You know the Filker family, right? Mafia family that's gotten pretty big lately. Their higher-ups heard about my work and invited me to join them. I've been following the Navy's new tech that lets warships pass through the comm belt. I've been brainstorming how it works, and while I've got some ideas, I need to build something myself to really make a breakthrough, but as you can see, I'm broke and can't fund any experiments. The Felkers promised to back my research if I design new weapons for them. I've always wanted to build the ultimate warship, a mad scientist with a big mouth. Ever heard of the legendary ancient weapon, Pluto? An invincible battleship, they say, but that was centuries ago. Let me tell you, I want to build something even better than Pluto. I've got this awesome idea that'll blow everyone's minds. But I need the right materials, and I can't find them, maybe I just don't know where to look. This is the North Sea, after all. Why couldn't I have been born in the South Blue? I hear the technology is more advanced there. Hey, is that a gun? Gray's eyes lit up, noticing the weapon on Nelu's hip. Take this. I just finished it. The Felkers helped get me the best materials, and I built it myself. It's way better than what you're packing now. Consider it a bonus. Gray disappeared back into the warehouse, rummaged through a pile of junk, and emerged with a dark-colored spear, which he handed to Nelu. Nelu's eyes widened. An experienced gun user, he recognized a masterpiece when he saw one. All right, I believe you. I can see the Felkers wanting to hire you. After inspecting it for a few moments, Nelu nodded with approval. Gray had used some cutting-edge tech in this gun. It held 10 rounds, and the stability and accuracy were top-notch. The guy was a genius. Rhodes nodded to himself and looked at Gray. If you don't have anything else, let's get moving. Okay, I travel light. Everything here's just scrap from old experiments. The real stuff is all in my head. But I'm still sad to leave. I've been here for years. If I wasn't stuck, I would've. The mad scientist started rambling again, and Rhodes's head began to throb. Luckily, Nelu jumped in, answering Gray's chatter with generic responses and asking questions about the gun. Lead the way, Nia. Where's your ship docked? West Coast. Got enough food and water to set sail right away. As Nia led the way, she couldn't shake a nagging feeling. How had Rhodes taken charge? It was like she was following his lead without realizing it. I'm the one who hired them, right? In the awkward silence, they reached the West Coast docks. Let me see, a classic two-masted sailing ship. Nothing special, kind of vanilla. If I designed it, I'd add a ram, a main gun, and more side cannons for firepower. Shut it. Nia smacked Gray on the head, her face dark. It's a perfectly good ship. You can build your own when you've got the money. Get on board. She hit her employer. Gray rubbed his head, grumbled under his breath, and meekly followed them onto the ship. Cast off. Chapter 5 Mignon Island. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Man, it's so peaceful out here. Rhodes leaned against the ship's rail, watching the distant seagulls, and exhaled slowly. Sailing can be a real drag. All you see is endless ocean. The occasional seagull is about as exciting as it gets, which is probably why pirates throw so many parties. I've been avoiding other ships to keep things quiet, Nelu said, glancing down at the sea chart. We're getting close to Mignon Island, though. Still, I'm stoked for the Grand Line. They say the weather's totally nuts there. Sunshine 1 second, then bam. Giant waves and hail the size of golf balls the next. Ha! We'll see soon enough, Rhodes boomed, clapping Nelu on the shoulder. He was just as eager as Nelu. The unpredictable weather, the crazy landscapes, the exotic food, he couldn't wait. Heading to the Grand Line, Nia, who was fishing on the other side of the deck, perked up her ears, turned slightly, and asked casually. Yep. Anyone who sails these waters dreams of that route. Gorgeous scenery, killer food, castles made of freaking gold. Not to mention islands floating in the sky and hidden underwater. Becoming pirates, then. What, regretting inviting a couple of soon-to-be pirates along. Nah, I'm past the whole black and white thing. Even pirates can have a code, and even the Navy can be a bunch of corrupt jerks, so long as it doesn't mess with me, I don't care if you're pirates or Navy. In other words, if it does mess with you, you won't care if they're Navy or pirates, right? Nia just snorted, put away her fishing rod, 10 minutes and not a single bite. Boring. Time to quit. Hey, why don't you join our crew? Rhodes suddenly asked Nia. Idiot, you're on my boat. Nia waved a dismissive hand and headed for the galley. Fishing was dull. She'd see if there was any grub. Hopefully, some dried fish left over from their last stop. Is this guy really planning on setting sail? Mechanically chewing the dried fish, Nia was lost in thought. She was curious and loved adventure. Over the years, she'd seen pretty much everything the North Sea had to offer. Pirate brutality, Navy greed, clueless common folk. She was bored with the same old song and dance. I could use a change of scenery. 2 pointy black cat ears suddenly popped out of Nia's head, twitching slightly. Her yellow, vertical pupils narrowed involuntarily, and a slow smile spread across her face. The Grand Line, Might be some interesting fish there. On deck, Gray had joined them, clutching a notebook crammed with scribbles. You guys going pirate? I seriously don't get the appeal. Drifting around on the ocean all day, staring at the same water, no stability, impossible to focus on research, talk about boring. Just these 2 days have worn me out, but I've already gathered tons of crucial data and come up with some amazing ideas. I can't wait to get there and start my research. Oh, and I've never been out to sea much before. The currents and sea breeze have a huge impact on the ship's navigation. I've written it all down, so my design should be foolproof. I wonder if the research institute the Felk family set up for me is. But have you considered, Rod interrupted Gray's rambling, that even the best ideas are worthless without real-world testing? Like you said, you haven't spent much time at sea, and the warship design is based on books. It's all theoretical. If you built a ship like that, it might get swallowed by the waves as soon as it hits the water. You might have a point. Gray froze, pulled out his notebook again, flipped through a few pages, then frowned and retreated to his cabin in silence. The data he'd gathered on the ship these past 2 days was clearly different from the literature he'd been using. Think he'll join us? Rod watched Gray lock himself in. Through the window, he saw that Gray wasn't working, but leaning against the table, deep in thought. I hope these two sign on, Nelu said, patting the gun at his waist. After trying out the gun Gray had given him, he knew it was flawless in every way. We're headed to the Grand Line. Having someone that's skilled on board would be a huge help. Don't worry, they're both in, Nehru said with a slight smile, recognizing their true feelings. My gut tells me Gray's research isn't going to be as smooth as he expects. Rhodes gazed ahead as a small island came into view. Their destination, Mignon Island. We'll find out soon enough. What are the Felk family up to? That the boat neared the shore. Nia came running from the galley and expertly guided the boat to dock. Gray emerged from his cabin, unusually quiet. I presume you're Mr. Gray. I'm Felk Jason. A line of men in black suits were waiting on the beach. As the group disembarked, they bowed slightly. The leader smiled and introduced himself, then gestured to a carriage nearby. Thank you for your escort. Please, get in the carriage. We're preparing a grand dinner at the manor to welcome Mr. Gray. Of course, your reward will be paid after dinner. Nia frowned. Typically, an escort mission ended upon delivery. Since the Felk family had arranged a pickup, they should just pay them and be done, but the Felk family didn't seem ready to let them go. Well, things were about to get interesting. Meanwhile, on the other side of Mignon Island, a ship was slowly approaching. Chapter 6, Scam. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the manor on the island, the carriage crept along the driveway. Through the window, Gray could see guys in black suits everywhere. Not just around the manor, but they'd started lining the road a good half-mile away. We've got extra security right now, Jason from the Felk family said from beside them in the carriage. Some people might be looking to cause trouble for us. He noticed Gray's look. You see, Mr. Gray, we're still using flintlocks. One shot, then reload. That's why I'm so interested in those continuous fire weapons you're designing. Mass-produce those, and our family's power will explode. Gray just nodded. Firearms were just a means to his real goal, designing a warship that could conquer the seas and outdo anything like the Pluto. But could he really do it without getting his hands dirty? Sure, others could run experiments, provide data, but could he trust their accuracy? Gray was starting to doubt his whole plan. The carriage stopped. They got out and followed Jason inside. The hall was massive, lined with black-suited goons. A long table stretched down the center, ending with a hulking guy with slick-back hair, Phil Kell, shrouded in cigar smoke. Definitely not a dinner party, Gray thought. The table was bare except for a glass of red wine in front of Kell. The doors closed behind them. Jason put a wine glass down near them, then opened a bottle and poured a glass. Dr. Gray, right? I loved that weapon you designed. Drink up and join the Felk family. You'll be in charge of designing all our weapons. Anything you want, booze, women, you got it. Kell gestured with his cigar and wine glass. Sounds great. I do enjoy fine wine and beautiful women. And about those warships I mentioned. I said, you're designing weapons. That's it. Kell frowned. Instantly, his men drew their guns, aiming at Gray and his three companions. Are all scientists this dense? We're gangsters, not pirates. What do we need with warships? You do what I say, design weapons, and don't worry about anything else. Do a good job, and I'll even let you go out to sea every now and then. That's my perk for scientists. He turned to Rhodes and the others. As for you three, sorry, but this is top secret Felk family business. Can't let you leave here alive. What the hell, man? Gray exclaimed. Call me Boss Kell. Kyle snapped, glaring at Gray. Drink the wine. Gray stared at the glass, conflicted. If I agree, will you let them go? They just got dragged into this. They won't say anything. You want to give up your dream of building ships to design weapons for these guys? Rod asked, his eyes dull compared to how he was when he first spoke of his dream. But, if I don't, you're dead. You fell for it once. How can you still be this naive? You really think he'll let us walk? You're a sharp one, Kell said, finally acknowledging Rhodes. He'd seen countless mercenaries at sea, but they didn't matter. What mattered was the young scientist. This guy was a weapon design genius. Kell had known it since he first heard of him. With those new guns, the Felk family would be the biggest arms dealer in the North Sea. He looked back at Gray, impatient. Drink the wine, and you're one of us. Work for me, and you'll be rewarded. Or, you can die here with them. I can't do it. Gray reached for the glass. Kell smiled. My dream has always been to build a battleship better than the Pluto. You want me to throw that away and be a puppet designing weapons for trash like you? No way. Gray smashed the wine glass on the floor, grabbed the bottle, and hurled it across the table. Bang! Gray was a scientist, not a fighter. The bottle missed Kell, hitting the table instead. The glass shattered, and red wine splattered across Kel's face. He looked furious. Get him. Kill the other three. Kel's men screamed, loaded their guns, and charged. Gray, despite his tough talk, was terrified, stumbling back. Seriously? I'm beyond annoyed that I let you play me in this amateur production. Nia grabbed Gray, her yellow eyes narrowed. At least give me the money up front, she roared, her long legs flying, kicking the frontmost attackers backward. Bang. Bang. Bang, the men opened fire on the other three. Mtlnovel flicked his wrist, his black gun spitting bullets. 10 shots in an instant, intercepting every bullet before hitting the gunman directly. 10 men fell, blooming crimson flowers. Let me borrow that. Rhodes sidestepped, grabbed a thug's hand, twisted the knife around, and slit the guy's throat. He tested the knife's weight, put his back into it, and swung, sending it flying, clearing the tables and chairs in front of them. Chapter 7 The Battle Begins. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Flying slash. A master swordsman. Kyle's jaw hit the floor when he saw Rhodes slash, and he froze. As a well-known gangster in the North Sea, he'd seen things, but a master swordsman was a big deal, even in the New World. What was he doing in the North Sea, getting involved in something like this? Was this just what strong people did? That's not a flying slash, and I wouldn't call myself a master swordsman. It's just raw power and the pressure of the blade. Even as he said that, Rhodes charged into the crowd, swinging his sword. I survived a master swordsman's flying slash. The guy Rhodes had knocked down earlier was clueless. He'd thought he was done for when he saw the attack, but he was fine. He wondered for a split second if he was secretly strong. The thought barely crossed his mind before Rhodes' blade flashed, and he was staring at his own butt. Nah, you're just choosing how you want to die. Rhodes kept swinging, and every flash of the blade meant another body hitting the ground. These guys were just too weak. A red light flickered in his eyes. Rhodes dodged some incoming bullets, then moved like lightning, appearing in front of the shooter and taking him down with a single strike. Knights will not die with bare hands. Doesn't seem to be helping me much anymore. The thought flashed through his head. The ability let him quickly master different weapons. It meant he could pick up swordsmanship or spearmanship and learn it fast, but it had its limits. With swordsmanship, the ability could only get him so far. It seemed like basic proficiency was the ceiling. Even now, even though he hadn't mastered iron cutting, Knights will not die with bare hands wasn't doing much for him in sword fights. He was already pretty good. The cutting iron thing was just within his reach, and as for sit-ups, these guys are way too weak. They're not even a challenge. These guys are monsters. Why would a monster get mixed up with our family's business? Kyle had a major headache watching Rhodes tear through his men in the hall. He waved Jason over, who had retreated to his side at some point, and ordered, "Hold those three off while I round up the boys." Before Jason could react, Kyle darted out a side door, leaving Jason alone in the hall, staring desperately at Rhodes, who was getting closer. Kyle was expecting too much from him. Against someone like that, he was just cannon fodder. "Get the cannons out here. Blow this place to kingdom come." Once he was outside the building, Kyle yelled at some of his guys. "But boss, our guys are still inside." Bang. The kid's head exploded. "You gotta remember, this is the Filk family, and I'm Filk Kyle." The other guys started running, dragging cannons into position, everything for the family. Those guys would be honored to give their lives for the cause. Boom. 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 Cannons roared toward the building. At that range, the doors and walls stood no chance. They were smashed to bits, and flames engulfed the place. That should be that. Kyle lit a fresh cigar and looked at the wreckage. He was finally starting to feel like himself again. Too bad about that designer, Gray. Kyle remembered the long-haired kid with Gray's new gun that could fire 10 shots in a heartbeat. If he could get his hands on that tech, dominating the North Sea wouldn't be impossible. That jerk really ticked me off. Those people in there must be your subordinates. The cat talked, that the Felker family stared in disbelief as a black cat jumped out of the ruins and perched on the fountain in the garden, glaring at Kyle. A devil fruit user. Kyle was stunned for a second, then understood. Just a black cat though. Kyle waved his hand. His men raised their guns and opened fire, filling the air with bullets. Later. The cat's eyes flashed, and then it was gone in a blink of black light. It reappeared in the crowd, just as the Felker family was looking around. The black cat suddenly ballooned in size, and then a slender figure stood in the middle of them. A moment later, bodies went flying. Using your own people as bait? You're terrible. Nia glared at Kyle, her eyes cold. Black cat ears sprouted from her head, and a black cat tail swished behind her. Her muscles tightened. Damn it. Why are you on my back? Kyle exhaled angrily, tossed his cigar on the ground, loosened his tie, and tensed his muscles. He'd built his empire with his bare fists. Did you forget something? You didn't want to pay up, and then you tried to kill us all. That's on you. Nia screamed, and the ground cracked under her feet as she shot forward, appearing in front of Kyle in an instant, her leg aimed right at him. Bang! Kyle blocked Nia's kick. His arm swayed, and the force of the impact sent the men pretending to be dead scrambling away. How about this? I'll give you the money, plus an extra 5 million. Just walk away now. Kyle could feel the power in her kick. For him, the gang was just business. Face didn't matter. Profit was all that mattered. It wasn't worth fighting anymore. If he could buy his way out of this, great. Once I kill you, everything you have will be mine. Nia's eyes flashed with hunger, and black fur sprouted on her body. She grinned, revealing 2 sharp fangs. I ate the cat fruit, black cat form. In this form, I lose control a little. If I get too violent, sorry in advance. A cold light flashed, and blood sprayed from Kyle's chest. That's it, meow. Nia looked at the blood dripping from her claws and licked her lips. Her yellow, cat-like pupils were wild. Chapter 8, Bellamy's sudden appearance, and the battle ended in an instant. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ugh, is this it? Am I gonna kick the bucket now? What a drag. I haven't even lived out my dreams yet. Forget about that dream battleship, I haven't even finished a regular boat. What have I been doing for the last 20 years? In the wrecked main building, Gray was sprawled out in a corner protected by some pillars, coughing up blood and muttering to himself. Is this kid gonna be alright? Rhodes, hearing Gray's ramblings, felt a headache coming on and hesitated. Did he really want to make this guy a crewmate? Nera vouched for his skills, sure, but this non-stop chatter. It made him want to duct tape his mouth shut. He'll live. Just a few broken bones. Nera gave Rhodes a nod after a quick once-over of Gray's injuries. The enemy's bombardment had been a real shocker, catching them off guard. They hadn't figured the guy would be so nuts as to open fire without giving a damn about his own people still inside. Boss Kyle. The few goons who'd somehow survived looked like ghosts. They'd never imagined their boss would toss their lives aside like that and blow up the whole place. What did their loyalty even mean then, if they were willing to take a bullet for a guy who didn't care about them? Their weapons clattered to the ground, and they completely lost the will to fight. They'd been fired up, ready to fight hard despite being outmatched by Rhodes and his crew. But their boss's cold-blooded move had snuffed out that fire. These guys are done. Rhodes thought, glancing at the remaining thugs. He wasn't some psycho killer. He couldn't bring himself to cut down men who were already broken. Kicking aside some rubble and splintered wood, Rhodes looked toward the courtyard in the center of the manor, where the fighting had already ended. She's a freaking monster. The sight of Kyle Felker, strewn across the ground, and the purple-haired woman standing over him, turned the gangsters' faces even paler. Their boss, the guy who'd built the Felker family into a powerhouse, had been taken down by that woman in a brutal beatdown, without even putting up a fight. Ugh, it's all over the place again. That's why I hate using this form. Nia looked around with a disgusted expression. She had the cat fruit, black cat model, a Zoan-type devil fruit, but for some reason, on top of the natural buffs the fruit gave her, every time she used it, she'd lose a bit of control, turning into a human beast, her power would skyrocket, but she'd also do things she normally wouldn't, she'd end up toying with her enemies, torturing them with no remorse. That's why she usually kept her powers under wraps. You guys can clear out now. I'm not interested in taking on small fries. Nott Rod's words were like a pardon. The remaining gangsters breathed a sigh of relief, their boss was gone, and they had no fight left in them. Besides, between the Catwoman who'd tortured their boss to death and the red-haired guy who'd shrugged off a whole barrage of cannon fire, they were way out of their league. Hold up, Nia's voice stopped the gangsters in their tracks. Pay up my reward first, you bastards. Relief turned to dread as the goons looked to Jason, the only one of the lieutenants still standing. Right away. I'll get you the agreed-upon reward, in full. Jason's face was a mask of mixed emotions as he hurried toward the back of the manor with a few others. If he had it his way, they'd have handed over the money when they were still on the coast. Bang. Ack. A gunshot followed by several screams echoed from the shadows behind the manor. Dozens of figures emerged, looking like a group of young punks, but with a vicious glint in their eyes. A two-bit gangster family trying to muscle in on that man's business? Don't they know the Don Quixote family runs the arms trade in the North Blue? That the leader, a kid with short blonde hair and a savage grin, was holding a dying Jason by the collar. He sized up the scene, then tossed Jason aside like trash. Just a bunch of second-rate losers. Bellamy, will clean them up for that man. Hey, Bellamy, don't hog all the fun. That the newcomers didn't pay the others any mind. They were all eager to show off, launching into an attack with whatever weapons they had. They looked like young teenagers, but they moved with a ruthless edge. You the boss of this Felker family? Looks like you just finished a scrap. Let me show you what real pirate fights are like, something a low-rent gang like you wouldn't understand. Bellamy's eyes landed on Rhodes, who looked like the biggest threat in the group. A wild grin spread across Bellamy's face as he spoke. Suddenly, his legs began to change, lines forming as they transformed into springs. The sound of compressed coils filled the air. Devil fruit user, Nia was surprised at the change in the opponent's legs. A moment later, the compressed springs unleashed their power, sending Bellamy hurtling forward with incredible force. His lips curled into a nasty smile as he drew back his fist, aiming a haymaker at Rhodes. So fast, Nia was shocked by Bellamy's speed. Even with her devil fruit powers, she'd have to push herself to match that kind of burst. Snap. Rhodes narrowed his eyes as Bellamy came at him. He sidestepped the punch, then grabbed Bellamy's face, halting his momentum. Before Bellamy could react, Rhodes twisted his waist, grabbed Bellamy's head and slammed it into the ground. Boom. The earth-shattering impact created a crater in the ground. Bellamy lay motionless, completely out cold. Brother Bellamy. Bellamy's crew were stunned as their leader went down in a single move. Bellamy was a spring man, a devil fruit user. He could turn any part of his body into a spring. Compressing it gave his attacks the force of a cannonball. Who was this red-haired guy who could take him down in an instant? That guy is crazy strong. Nia's eyes were sparkling as she watched Rhodes end the fight in a flash. So, care to explain what's going on? The fight over, Rhodes turned to the remaining members of the crew, his voice calm. In the original timeline, this guy met Luffy on Jaya, and had a falling out with him. He showed up in Dressrosa too. Seemed like he was on the fringes of the Don Quixote family. But they didn't have any Don Quixote symbols on them. Were they just Doflamingo's lackeys now? Chapter 9: The Legend of Sea Monsters. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After hearing Bellamy and his crew's story, Rhodes finally got the picture. They were all from Nottis Town, a pretty well-off place, but these kids, growing up with money, got bored with the same old grind and wanted something more. So, with Bellamy leading the charge, they formed a little group. They idolized Don Quixote Doflamingo, the big-shot pirate from the North Sea, and dreamed of becoming just like him. Their ultimate goal? Joining the Don Quixote family. Recently, they caught wind of something through the local gangs. The Felk family, holed up on Mignon Island, was apparently trying to muscle in on the North Sea arms trade, and they were gearing up in a big way. Up until now, the Don Quixote family had a lock on the whole arms business in the North Sea. Back in the day, they expanded their operation across the entire region, crushing any competition that dared to step up. Once Doflamingo became one of the 7 warlords of the sea, he used the world government's clout to keep a tight grip on all the shady deals, so, for some other group to even try to grab a tiny piece of the action, that was a straight-up challenge to Doflamingo. Bellamy and his buddies, eager to prove themselves, decided to take the initiative and shut down these guys trying to horn in on the Don Quixote family's turf. If they played their cards right, maybe they'd get an invite to join the family themselves. Of course, they never expected to run into someone as tough as Rhodes. "I don't have time for small-time punks like you. Beat it." Rhodes' cold stare sent shivers down their spines. They didn't dare utter a word and scrambled to get away. One kid with blue hair mustered the courage to approach Rhodes and try to haul Bellamy's unconscious body away. "I didn't say you could take him," Rhodes said casually, glancing at him. The kid froze, trembling slightly, but he stubbornly lifted his head, his eyes filled with conflict. "Run, Sachis, forget about Bellamy." Hearing his friend's plea, Sachis looked torn. He opened his mouth, like he wanted to say something, but in the end, he just gently lowered Bellamy to the ground, turned, and bolted after his friends. "I thought he might have asked you to let him go." Nia watched the embarrassed group retreat, a hint of disdain in her eyes. They ditched their own friends at the drop of a hat. Just a bunch of wannabe tough guys. "So, what are you planning to do with this springy kid?" "I want to test something out." Rhodes stared down at Bellamy, a memory of his own friend flashing through his mind. He wondered how that guy's training was coming along, and if his idea would actually work. Just then, Jason arrived, carrying a box. He approached Rhodes cautiously and handed it over. Rhodes raised an eyebrow at the sight of the gangster. He'd been beaten to a pulp by Bellamy and his crew just moments ago, but he bounced back pretty quick. "Turns out he's a gang leader. Gotta give him credit, he's got some resilience." Rhodes took the box, a strange glint in his eyes. "This has got to be at least 5 million. You saved our lives, sir. The money isn't enough to thank you. Besides, if you hadn't stepped in, that evil gang would have finished us off." As he spoke, Jason's eyes nervously darted to Bellamy, lying at Rhodes' feet. The enemy who took them all down with ease couldn't even land a single blow on Rhodes. The difference between them and these gangsters was just too great. "If you want to get technical, you saved our lives twice over. Cut it out. I just don't like dealing with weaklings." Rhodes interrupted Jason, not wanting to get drawn into a lengthy explanation. "I'll take the money. Let's go." Hefting the box of cash, Rhodes nudged Bellamy toward Nia with his foot, called out to Neru, watched him hoist Gray onto his back, and the group headed for the shore. We're too weak. Jason thought to himself, watching them leave, they had been too focused on the underworld business and immediate gains. Now that he thought about it, their world was too small. "Boss Jason, what do we do now?" Once Rhodes and his group were out of sight, the remaining gang members gathered around Jason. Their boss was dead, scattered everywhere, and the top lieutenants were all taken down by Rhodes' crew in the fight. That made Jason the highest-ranking member left. Plus, he'd always been the brains of the Felk family, so nobody questioned him taking over. Jason surveyed the scene. Everyone looked confused and uncertain. Some of the injured men were groaning on the ground. "First, we treat the wounded. Then, we spread the word to gather the remaining members of the family," Jason said, his voice firm. Hearing his orders, the men sprang into action. With someone taking charge, they started to shake off their panic. The gang life is meaningless. Jason looked at his men, thinking about the two groups he'd just encountered. Rhodes and his crew, Bellamy and his crew, both had a power that they just couldn't match. The sea, maybe that's where the real opportunities are. On the coast. "Are you sure we shouldn't wait until dawn to set sail?" I've heard stories about weird things happening at night on the route between Fian Island and Mignon Island. Someone claimed they saw a guy rowing a tiny boat for his life, with huge white waves chasing him. The strange thing is, the boat couldn't dock once it reached the shore. so he had to keep rowing until dawn. The rower was dead tired. They say there's a sea monster. Hearing Nia's words, Rhodes and Nelu exchanged weird looks. A sea monster? Then let's just wait until morning, Gray yelled, as if the news had made his injury worse, and his face paled even further. It's just a silly rumor. Rhodes pulled up the anchor, looking in the direction of Fian Island. Let's go. Chapter 10 Trafalgar Law. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Why do you seem so familiar with this part of the route? Nia asked, watching Nelu expertly navigate. Because it's our hometown. Oh, right. So you must know about the sea monster rumors. Like I said, those are just tall tales. Hold on, Nia's eyes snapped to the distance, where a small boat was paddling furiously across the water. Behind it, several white waves were churning and closing in. Those people in the boat, and those waves chasing them, it really is a sea monster. Sea monster. Gray, who'd been lying down, yelped and shot to his feet, instantly regretting it as pain flared through his injuries. There is a sea monster. Turn this boat around. He howled, seeing that the others were frozen, paralyzed on the deck. This is it. I'm gonna be Monster Chow. I shouldn't have come to Mignon Island in the first place. If I hadn't, Filk wouldn't have tricked me, and I wouldn't be hurt. Then I wouldn't be out here in the middle of the night getting buried at sea with you guys. While Gray was panicking, the small boat pulled up close. Nia got a good look at the person rowing, a guy in a fuzzy, spotted hat. He had a slightly hardened face, a sinister-looking beard, and dark circles under his eyes that could rival Gray's. Gaudy tattoos covered his arms. He looked up at them and smiled, weirdly friendly, star. Just as Nia was puzzling over his expression, the man snapped his fingers and something flicked toward them, an enemy, star. Nia instinctively took a step back, getting ready to fight. Then she realized what he'd thrown, pebbles. Who uses rocks as weapons? The thought barely registered when a deep voice rumbled in her ear, room. The next second, a figure materialized beside her. Before she could figure out how he'd done it, Nia reacted, throwing a kick, bang, star. It landed with a thud, and surprise flickered in her eyes. It felt like kicking an iron wall. This newcomer was strong. Cut it out, Nia. He's with us. Rhodes said, his face splitting into a happy grin. What a way to say hello, Rhodes. The newcomer's hard face softened into a smile. Then, all three shared a knowing look, so this is the buddy Rhodes said was waiting on Fian Island. He's definitely got some power, star. A huge shape burst from the sea, spinning through the air and heading straight for their boat. Sea monster. Gray shrieked again, spotting the white form. Wait, it's a polar bear. Nia exclaimed in surprise as the bear twisted in mid-air, landing on the deck in a crane stance. Long time no see. Xiong missed you guys so much, Boss Rhodes, Boss Nelu. After holding the pose for all of a second, the bear went nuts, tackling Rhodes in a hug. The bear's talking. Nia and Gray exclaimed in unison. Sorry. The bear mumbled into Rhodes and Nelu. Be brave, Beepo. Sorry. While Nia and Gray were still processing the talking bear, two more figures leaped out of the water, landing on the deck. This night is getting wild. Nia muttered, used to the new arrivals. He's finally back, Boss Rhodes. And Nelu's here too. The two looked at Rhodes eagerly, their eyes shining. We can do it now. We can run back and forth between Fian and Mignon in one night. We can finally come out to sea with you. That's right. Rhodes said with a grin. Yes. The two whooped and jumped. Hold up, hold up. Can someone introduce me? And could you two maybe put some clothes on? Nia said. She stared at the two newcomers, who were practically naked, hopping around on the deck. Finally, she snapped, smacking them both on the head. Sorry. They mumbled, rubbing their heads. Alright, let me introduce everyone properly. This is Trafalgar Law, our ship's doctor, Beepo, our mascot, I guess. These two are Pecan and Hachi, also part of the crew. And this is Catwoman Nia, and Scientist Gray. After the introductions, Pecan and Hachi threw on some clothes. The whole group crowded onto the deck, making the small boat even smaller. So, the whole sea monster thing, that's your fault? Nia asked, amused. Turns out, they'd been training every night to build up their strength and become tough sea warriors, swimming from Fian Island to Mignon Island and back. Law, who had a devil fruit power, would row alongside them. Using that as a workout, that's insane. The islands were close, but still, swimming that distance against the ocean current was no joke. This is how Brother Rod taught us to train. But we're still far behind him. One of them said. Rod smiled, remembering their earlier training on the island. After realizing he was in the world of OnePiece, he'd started training himself according to the turtle school method he remembered. As he got to know his crew, the training group grew little by little. Let's talk later. We've got wounded on board, Rod said, snapping out of it and pointing to Gray, who was still lying on the deck. Right. We don't have much to work with out here. Let's get him patched up, Law said, taking the rudder from Rod with Beepo's help. Alright, let's go home.